All right, got my wrench, got my parts, I'm good. Got this right there, I'm ready to go.
Jason, put the parts down, okay? Look, this isn't even gonna work together. This is an LR-308 lower. This is an AR-10 up. This is an AR-15 charging handle.
Okay, first of all, lower your voice. It's not that serious. I was just trying to build an AR-10.
Yeah, but AR-308 comes in different. You know what? Top 5 things to know before building your AR-308 style rifle. Man, this isn't gonna work.
I'm sorry.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Classic Firearms. I'm Matt, today with me.
Jason, what's going on, guys?
And today we're gonna do a little bit of a before you build segment because there's some information that you're gonna need to have if you are interested in building or accessorizing a AR-308 style rifle.
What, 5 things before you build?
5 things before you build. In fact, I'm gonna give you one for free right off the bat, and that is that there is no mil spec for AR-308s. By that I mean that the AR-15 has developed a mil specification, right? A military specification, and pretty much all manufacturers, if they don't adhere to it, they at least make sure their parts will work with parts that are in mil specifications. That means there's an objective kind of standard, right?
Okay.
So there is no objective standard or specification for the AR-308 style rifles, and if you question why I keep using that term, it's because even though these two things look very similar, they're both AR-15 style firearms and they're both in 308. Really, when we get into the differences, you'll see that we might as well treat them as completely separate platforms.
And let's jump right into it. Number 1.
Yeah, so number 1 is the receivers, upper and lower receivers. Now, by that I mean the actual stripped receiver, not the complete assemblies. And if we look here, we have this Knight's Armament SR25 and this Arrow M5. Now, this is a DPMS style LR-308 rifle. This is an Armalite style AR-10 rifle. Now, if we look at the receivers and specifically where they mate back here near the buffer tower, you can see that this has a angled mating surface. This has got a straight line that's at a diagonal.
Yeah, and this one has, arguably different, more of a rounded style, but to me it looks like just a bigger, beefier AR-15.
That's right. And so due to these physical features of the shape of them, you cannot mate an upper receiver from an AR-10 to a lower receiver from an LR-308 or vice versa. You got to buy matching receivers.
Yeah, apples to apples.
Apples to apples.
All right, since we got done with receivers, rolling on to number 2, how it moves, how it recoils. What, buffer springs and stuff,
the buffer assembly really, right? So we're not talking about the stock, we're not talking about the castle nut, but the buffer tube, buffer spring, and the buffer weight itself. So these things are different. The Armalite has a different series of weights for both the A2 and the carbine than the DPMS pattern does.
You mean like this A2 right here?
Right. So this is a great example of an A2, so it's the long kind of fixed stock buffer tube. And then this would be a great example of a carbine buffer tube. So that's what allows your adjustable stock. Now, keep in mind that if you get a DPMS rifle and you want a carbine buffer, then you're gonna need an AR-10 style spring. And you gotta get this very short, very heavy buffer weight. Now, again, the Armalite rifle has kind of an equivalent, it's just slightly different, but that difference is important. And there's 1/3 option as well.
It's like a A5 system?
That's right, the A5 system. So the A5 is sort of a halfway point between these two things. You can think of it as a kind of a carbine plus, right? So here we can see, these are AR-15 lower receivers, but they're for illustration purposes, the differences. So here, if we try to line these up, you can see that this A5 in the front is slightly longer than the carbine length buffer tube in the back. And what that does basically is it allows you to run an AR-10 spring with a standard carbine buffer weight. And again, it's a little bit more adjustable, right? So you have a couple different options, but the important thing is remember that, if you have Armalite rifle versus DPMS rifle, those specifically are going to be different weights. But really, it's what system do you pick to choose, right?
Oh, which one do you feel like running? All right. Roll on to number 3.
Number 3. All right, so number 3 is going to be the front end of the rifle. We went to the back, now we're going to the front. So that's going to be the handguard, the barrel nut, and the bolt carrier. So these things, first off, the handguard can come in kind of 2 heights to match the upper receiver. This is specific to the DPMS pattern, but there can be a high profile or a low profile.
Okay.
And you want those two things to match. You want them to mate up correctly so that you have a nice uniform front to rear Picatinny rail surface. Now that really only applies to the DPMS pattern, and the high profile is much more common, but you do see enough of the low profile stuff out there that when it comes to the handguard, you're going to want to make sure that it matches your upper receiver. But also, because the barrel extension is different between the AR-10 and the LR-308, that means that the opening, the threaded part of the front of the receiver is going to be a different size, and that also means that the barrel nut has to be different size, and if the barrel nut's a different size, it means the handguard has to be different. So there's a whole interaction there, and then also going the other way, since the barrel extension, the part that actually sticks into your barrel that kind of contains the chamber basically, since that is different, the bolts or bolt carrier groups are also different.
Right, but people say all the time, well, it fits in there, it'll fit in here, but...
Yeah, and so the biggest issue is that you can't take a DPMS style, say, carrier and put an AR-10 style bolt into that carrier. Those parts are not interchangeable in that regard. As a unit, they do fit both platforms, but importantly, they interact with the carrier differently, and in order to get headspace properly, you're going to want to just use the appropriate bolt carrier.
Head spacing is a thing.
That's right. We don't want to create any unintentional explosions.
There you go.
So that's an important family of parts that work together right there.
All right.
Moving on to number 4.
Number 4. And number 4, talk about the gas tube, gas block, since we're still on this business
That's
end,
right.
party end. Because obviously, there's huge differences, but not only that, especially being an AR-10 platform or LR-308, there's variances in the ammo and different stuff. So you want to be able to dial that in. I'd say, adjustable gas blocks definitely would be a plus in that factor. But what about the AR-10?
So the big issue is that the AR-10's gas tube is actually longer than the DPMS style gas tube. And so you can't interchange them in that regard, right? Now, the gas block itself theoretically depends on just the size of the barrel. That's again, since the barrel itself is the same, just the extension different. You should be able to use the similar gas blocks, but I think that again, so many things come without a adjustable gas block, and when you're talking about 308, there's so many important reasons why you'd want an adjustable gas block, whether that be softening recoil or working with it suppressed. I've seen people who commented about how tuning your AR-308 makes it so much more enjoyable to shoot because it is a heavier rifle. It does shoot a larger caliber for the most part. There are variations of 7.62 by 51 that can be chambered in the rifle, but they are generally more recoil. At least perceived recoil, right? So being able to soften that by turning the gas down is also one of those things that can just make your rifle more enjoyable and makes you want to go out and shoot it more.
Seems pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Number 5.
All right, guys, so number 5 is going to be what parts these rifles share in common. And then, coincidentally enough, that means they also share them in common with the AR-15.
Okay.
So lots of us have extra parts laying around at least everyone who works here has extra parts laying around their house.
Fact.
You found a stock that you liked on sale, or you just really love a certain aftermarket trigger, and you're like, can I use that in my AR-10/LR-308 build? AR-308 build. So yeah, there's going to be plenty of parts that are interchangeable between both these rifles as well as the AR-15. That includes the stock. So if there's a particular style of stock you like, you're in luck because say you have a carbine length buffer on your AR-15, it's going to be the same that goes on the carbine length buffer of an LR-308. Your pistol grip, so depending on what you like there, your trigger, hammer, disconnector, the pins and springs for those things, safety selector, those are all going to be the same. Now, one big thing that is not the same is the bolt catch. So the bolt catch does not work between an AR-15 and a AR-308. However, the plunger and spring do. Now, the pin probably will not, because again, a lot of these AR-308 platforms actually use a threaded pin, which is different from the roll pin used in most 308s. But so again, there are going to be some parts that aren't the same and some parts that are. And then the pivot pin and takedown pins are also going to be different. Although again, the detents and springs for those things would be the same. Also, your buffer retainer and buffer retainer spring are the same. So combine that with the castle nut being the same, and not with an AR-15 unless it's say maybe a 7.62 by 39 version, but the muzzle brakes between these two rifles will of course still interchange because the thread pitch is the same. So there are a fair number of parts commonalities. in the upper, the charging handle are the same between these two, not as the AR-15 though. And of course, one of the things that we love most are the accessories, right? So, when it comes to flip up sights, lasers, all that kind of stuff, obviously anything that you can mount to this Picatinny rail is going to be good to go. Most rails are going to have some kind of M-lock or something. So if you want any of the accessories down here, flashlights, vertical grips, whatever, that's also going to be good to go. I guess talking about the compatibility between the AR-15 and this, you might want to go for a scope that has a different reticle because of the caliber difference.
Good thing to know.
But on the other hand, if you're going with a red dot, you're going to zero it a little bit differently, but it can be the exact same red dot.
There you go.
So yeah, I mean, I think that it's a really cool concept to build your own rifle. I think nothing teaches you more about how your rifle functions than putting the parts together yourself. And I think that knowing how the rifle functions really helps you. If you're out in the field and you experience some kind of a malfunction, it's so much easier to understand what's going wrong when you know how these parts work together. So I think that it's a very valuable lesson to build your rifle yourself. However, if you have bought a rifle, again, all this information is still applicable to if you want to make any upgrades or changes to it, customizing it. So, you bought an arrow set and you're like, hey, what pistol grips, what stocks can I put on it? What if I want to change the caliber? Can I buy a completely new upper? Oh wait, I bought the wrong upper. You don't want to waste time and money on parts you're not going to be able to use. So it's important to know what's compatible. And those are our top 5 things that you should know before you start the build process or, accessorize it too much, So yeah, if you like this content, please let us know down in the comments. Do you have a favorite? Do you prefer the LR308? Do you prefer the AR-10? Is there a reason for that? Again, personally, I've only ever had experience with kind of DPMS pattern, so I haven't had any.
AR-10 is what I'm used to.
Yeah,
for sure.
And then, is there some other before you build style segment that you would like us to run? Maybe you're gonna trick out a competition pistol, or you're looking to put together. I know some people like to build their own bolt action rifles.
Oh yeah.
We've got some pretty cool custom builds that have come through here. So maybe you would like something on another, hey, how do I make my fully customized suppressed 1022, say?
Oh, sounds
maybe that would be a cool one. Let us know down in the comments what you would like to see or what other kind of content you would like to see us here have on the channel. But guys, definitely appreciate you coming down and enjoy. And the greatest part is they're orphans. They need a forever home.
At no cost to you.
That's right. So check that out. And guys, again, we appreciate you coming down here. God bless.
Well, it's okay. We appreciate your business.
And we'll see you next time at Classic Firearms.